Welcome back, my friends, to the D-Rate the Hate podcast. I am your host, Wilk of WilksWorld.com, and I am so incredibly grateful that you are taking the time to join me for another powerful DTH episode. Friends, at the D-Rate the Hate podcast, it's all about bettering the world one attitude at a time. See, we did not create the hate, but with your help, we can derate the hate. That all starts with gratitude and personal accountability. We cannot control everything that happens to us in life, but we can control how we react to it. How we act, how we react, no matter what happens to us, how we react to it makes the difference. Friends, there is only one good thing about a bad attitude, and that is that we have the ability as individuals to change it. Here on the DTH podcast, we strive to bring you great guests and provide tools to do just that. Please be sure to share it with your friends. Subscribe if you haven't done so. Ratings and feedback are always greatly appreciated. And with that, let's get to this week's episode. Friends, many who know me personally or have listened to the DTH podcast for very long have heard me talk about my anger in the past, the animosity, the anger that I've had to get over, all the pent-up rage and things that I've had to overcome to be the person that I am today. Many don't know that the genesis of that was really about bullying. You see, friends, I was bullied incessantly for many years as a child. Throughout elementary school, I can remember, and please don't get me wrong, this isn't the only thing, but it was a very large part of where that came from. So during those very instrumental and developmental years in a child's life, many of my memories are terrifying. This may be one of the most vulnerable episodes that I'll put out ever. Maybe. I don't know. But I do know that my guest in this week's episode, Madonna Hanna, gets it. She really gets it. Probably gets it better than I do. And while many, many children have been bullied for any number of reasons, those that have been bullied with regularity over several years of their life know what the horrific and lasting effects of that are. For me, it often manifested itself as broken things, broken bones, and broken relationships. Me being the person that I am, it probably took me way too long to learn my lessons. But my guest, Madonna Hanna, had a different story. A story you absolutely do not want to miss. You see, Madonna Hanna is a charismatic, award-winning educator, author, athlete, and highly energetic and entertaining speaker and storyteller. She has spoken at various educational and promotional storytelling events for more than 30 years. Madonna was born on a Pensacola Naval Base and was later raised in the middle-class white suburbs of Boston, Massachusetts during the 1960s and 70s. She was the only African-American student in her elementary school class, and her parents overcame incredible obstacles of discrimination to provide their family with the American dream of a suburban middle-class lifestyle. Now, despite her creativity and talent, I'm sure you can imagine that Madonna faced bullying, racial prejudice, and isolation in her school due to the color of her skin. In fact, there were many white parents who would not even allow their children to play with her, which is why she only had a few friends. Madonna Hanna took her experiences of bullying as a child and turned that pain into perseverance, started an incredible career in the fashion industry, and then later turned her experiences in the fashion industry into a career as an educator. Madonna moved to Washington State to embark on a 32-year teaching career where she taught fashion marketing in the Tacoma and Bremerton school districts. She developed an award-winning anti-bullying program, Dare Not to Swear, and an inclusivity program for students with disabilities. She partnered with area high schools and junior high to create the award-winning Flights of Fancy fashion show for students with disabilities. Madonna Hanna was recognized for her excellence in teaching at the statewide and national levels. I am now so incredibly honored to call Madonna Hanna my new friend. So welcome to the DTH podcast, Madonna Hanna. You're not going to want to miss it. Here we go. Madonna Hanna, the fast and fabulous fashionista. I am so glad to have you on the D-Rate the Hate podcast. You're definitely an inspiration. I've been reading up on the different stuff that you have out there. Your Dropkick the Drama Productions website. So inspiring. And I thank you so much, Madonna, for joining me today here on the D-Rate the Hate podcast.
Well, thank you for having me as a guest. You have said that I'm an inspiration, but I am sure that you're doing a good job of inspiring people too.
Yeah, I hope so, because that's what we do this for. It's all about bettering the world one attitude at a time. There's a lot of things out there that we could point out in the world that are bad and toxic, and we do that too. But my favorite thing about this podcast, Madonna, is having people on here that they themselves have overcome some kind of trauma. They've triumphed over it. They've taken the path of resilience rather than resentment, and that is where your story fits in so well. And I've been, like I said, I've been reading up on the stuff that you have out there. So I want to go back to there's a statement that stood out to me when I first came across your profile, Madonna, that really stood out to me, and it says, "Thank goodness I was bullied." And I mean, it struck me like a lightning rod, because, I myself was bullied a lot as a child, and that really shaped who I was, and a lot of the anger and resentment that I had growing up and even into my young adult years. So talk to me, Madonna, about where that came from, that thank goodness I was bullied. Talk about how you were bullied as a child, and kind of how you took that path of resilience rather than resentment.
Obviously, we can see what color I am.
There's that.
And that's why I was bullied. I was raised in a conservative white suburb of Boston. That was during the 60s. And as we know, there was a lot of exciting things going on in America in the 60s.
That there was.
And when you're the only one in your classroom who looks like you, who looks like me.
Sure.
In fact, the elementary school that I went to only had 3 African American students in it.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I believe there were probably 35 to 40 kids to a classroom. And thank goodness all of them weren't bullies. Sure. There were four little white guys who made it their job to bully me grade after grade after grade. And most of the time we sat in alphabetical order. So I was constantly bullied by these other students. Those of you that have been bullied, you remember the first and last names.
That's for sure.
Those. Yes, for the rest of your life.
Absolutely right.
You remember them, and you remember how they made you feel. Just quickly talking about the elementary school experience, I used to hate, absolutely, when we would get to the history unit about the Civil War, because then these students would refer to me as slave, little black boll weevil, old black Joe. And I thought, wait a minute, I'm in the 4th grade. I'm not an old, I'm not an old black man. But especially in Boston, the way the unit, that Civil War unit was structured, the music teacher would also plan music from that time period too.
Sure.
And one of the songs was The boll weevil was a little black bug, and the song about old black Joe. So
Okay.
here I am in history class, getting bombarded, being called, slave and stuff. And then here we are in the music class. Yeah. Here, so here we go. An incident that happened in junior high school. Once again, I'm the only black kid in gym class. Right after class, going into the locker room, my locker door was open and my wallet was gone. And I'm looking around. Two white girls come over and call me the N-word, threw my wallet at me. It was empty, of course. And then they shoved me into my open locker. Now, I weighed 99 pounds at the time, and I'm just skin and bones being shoved into this locker, and I'm scratched up and I'm bleeding, not profusely, but I'm bleeding from being shoved into the metal edge of the open locker.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
I'm crying. I'm scared and I'm crying because this is a physical attack on me.
Absolutely.
I walked over to where the gym teacher was, and I told her what happened. And she looked at me with those cold blue eyes of hers and said, "Now, Madonna, those are nice girls, and they wouldn't do anything like that." Well, come on. I'm 99 pounds. I'm shaking. I'm crying. I'm bleeding. And
Right.
that's what he said to me.
It's just a horrific thing. Yeah, I mean that people would be so. I don't even.
A teacher.
Yeah, I know. A teacher. Well, I mean, it's bad enough that the students are doing it, right? I mean, but the
Yes.
students at least have some type of excuse. I mean, they've been raised in the wrong way. They don't know. They just don't have the mental wherewithal to understand in many cases what they're doing to a fellow student, because right, they have not had the correct guidance at that point. But for the teacher to be so awful that they would ignore it and
Blatantly.
it's awful. It's awful.
Yes. So I walked back to my locker, and there were the girls. They weren't calling me the N-word this time, but they were calling me a tattletale. I thought, I'm not catching a break here. I'm catching a break. What helped to shape me and turn me around was an incident when I was a senior in high school. There were a few of us selected students who were consistently bullied. I was one. And the other one was a sophomore girl named Beth. Beth was 5'11", weighed probably about 280 pounds, which was back in the 60s, that was unusual for, so, especially in the 60s. And she had cotton candy, brown hair, so you could see her scalp. Her eyes were crossed, and she wore glasses that magnified her eyes. And she had buck teeth. So you can kind of see why Beth was picked on.
Physical appearance, people are cruel, children especially.
Yes, but it was especially her weight.
Okay.
And Beth was involved in the choir. And whenever there was a choir assembly, the kids would talk about her. Oh, she's wearing a pup tent, because they couldn't find a robe big enough for her. She was also on the drill team, and our colors were orange, black, and white. And the drill team jackets were orange. And I can remember hearing kids say, "Oh, Charlie Brown, there's the great pumpkin."
It's terrible what kids will say to people.
Yes. And I'm ashamed to say that when I heard them making comments about her, I was glad, because it wasn't me that time. Anybody who's been bullied, when somebody else is being bullied, there's that relief that for this moment, it's not me. They're picking on somebody else. I'm not the target right now.
Yep, something has taken the attention off of me, and now I get a moment of relief. And
you got it.
It's horrible. I've been there. I've felt it.
Yeah.
Thank
you. Thank you for understanding that, because you nailed it. Exactly. You've nailed it exactly, because it's not me right now. And obviously you can hear it that I was ashamed of my actions,
Right.
looking back now, and you understand why, like I said. There was a period of time when Beth was absent from school. And there were rumors going around that she was ill or maybe had cancer. But when you're in high school, especially at time in the 60s, it's unheard of to think about somebody young, a teenager, having cancer, because older people have cancer, not teenagers.
Right.
It turned out to be true. When Beth returned to school, she had lost so much weight that I believe she was down to the size that she should have been for her height. And she was absolutely gorgeous. She was absolutely gorgeous. She looked like she just stepped from the cover of 17 magazine. She had this radiant glow about her. And I actually didn't even know it was her. I wouldn't have known it was her if I hadn't seen her little group of friends around her. And of course, everybody was buzzing about how fabulous Beth looked. That, I believe, was on a Wednesday. The following Monday, right after the right after the principal had read the Pledge of Allegiance, during homeroom time,
Mm-hmm.
he said that Beth's mother had stopped by and left him a note. And he said that Beth had passed away over the weekend. And he read the note from her mother. She said that Beth had loved attending high school. And she showed her pride by being in the choir, because she loved to sing, and by being on the drill team. You couldn't hear a pin drop in my homeroom, because I told you what the kids said about her, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was so angry. Well, I was so angry at Beth. I was so angry. The note went on to say that when the doctors told Beth she maybe just had about a week, Beth didn't want to stay home. She wanted to go to school. She wanted to be there with her friends, which was a small group of friends.
Sure.
And I was angry, because I thought, if I knew that I only had a week to live, I would not want to go to school, because kids had bullied her, so talked about her. I wouldn't have done it. And I was angry at her that she did. Then a couple of days later, I thought, darn it, Beth lived her life on her own terms.
That's right.
She lived on her own terms. She was in the choir, knowing they were saying mean things about her, but she loved to sing, so she did it. She was on the drill team, and yeah, she was out there. Yeah, she was the biggest thing out there, but she was there. And I thought, I can't do anything about the color of my skin. I can't do anything about it. But I know what I want to do. I know that I want to go into the fashion industry. And I know that also that if somebody does not like me because of the color of my skin, that's their problem.
That's right.
And I pledged to myself that I would keep Beth in my heart. And anytime that I could share her story, I would, because that was a significant turning point for me, realizing that she lived her best life and didn't care about visibly didn't care about what other people said about her. That's one of the reasons why I say that I got to the point where I could say, well, thank goodness I was bullied, because I was able to grow a thick skin. I was able to realize my own self-worth through Beth's situation.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to say, if someone doesn't like me for some reason, well, that's just how it is, and,
right.
and I also learned, and I do share this with students, that it doesn't matter what color you are or what you look like. You can be teased about anything.
That's right.
You can absolutely you can be the most beautiful girl in the school. And the other girls, some girls will tease you because you are pretty and they're jealous. So, and it could be where you live, the kind of car your parents drive, the kind of jobs that your parents have. You can be teased about absolutely anything. You're tall, you're short, you've got curly hair. Oh my gosh, you've got freckles. It can be absolutely anything. But at the time that you're being bullied, you're not thinking like that, because, well, I would go home and I would cry and I would talk to God. I'd say, why did you make me this color? Why did you do this to me? Because I feel miserable. Nobody likes me. And I just, why did you do this to me? But as a child, that's what that's how you feel, because you think if you're a different color, that everything's going to be all right. But it isn't even about that, as you find out, as you find out that you could be bullied about absolutely anything. And I know that I asked you earlier, I was bullied because of the color of my skin. Why were you bullied?
Well, thanks for asking that, Madonna, because you are right in so many of the things that you said in bringing up Beth's story and bringing up your story, Madonna. Brought back some emotions for me from my childhood, because DTH listeners, people that have been listening to the podcast for a long time, have probably heard me mention the fact that I was bullied incessantly for a number of years, as a child. Now, I grew up in the Midwest in the late 70s, early 80s, and honestly, there was not a lot of people of color in the area where I'm from. Probably still isn't, but I mean, that doesn't matter. And that's one of the things that I talk about a lot on the podcast is, people, kind of to your point there, that you said, I was being bullied because of the color of my skin. It's not the color of people's skin that is always the catalyst for that bullying. It's It can be truly anything. I was a very poor kid. You know, my parents had very, very little means, you know, so wearing hand-me-down clothes, sometimes wearing the same shirts that my dad wore, you know,
Yeah.
that were hanging down to my knees, you know.
Yeah.
I was wearing generic hand-me-down stuff that maybe looked ratted and tattered and stuff like that. I grew up very poor. We didn't have the kind of stuff that other kids had. We didn't, we didn't have the ability to go to different events like other kids did. And
Sure.
kids will grab onto and gravitate to any weakness that they can find. But it's not all kids. It just
No.
like people with races. You know, there's certain people in our society today that will try to convince you that everybody out there's a racist under every bed or a sexist hiding in every closet or things like that. It's not true. It's people
No.
that are ignorant, people that do not have the they haven't had the right upbringing. They haven't had the right kind of guidance. They don't have the right moral principles to deal with people who are different than they are.
Yes.
So those kids, those four boys that used to incessantly pick on you because you had the misfortune of being amongst them alphabetically. So now you're stuck with them all the time.
Yes.
You know, I tried so hard as a child, and I look back on certain things that I did. I was quirky. I had different thoughts and opinions about things. I was outspoken about certain things that other kids that probably wouldn't be outspoken about. And I did not fit in. But I did not fit in. And then there was those kids that saw that and looked at that, and I was small and scrawny and as try as I made to fit in, generally I just got my ass kicked for it. I mean, sure. and it was terrible. I mean, it was terrifying. I mean, I hated school because of it. Just like you were talking about. I didn't have that Beth mentality. I didn't have the ability to get through it like Beth did, you know, and it was horrific. I think about the years between second grade and fifth grade for me, and the beatings I took and the things that I heard and the things that were said to me. And you're right, those names never go away. But what we can do, Madonna, and this is the big thing that I talk about in my podcast, because there are so many things in this world that are outside of our control, completely outside of our control. It took me a long time to figure this out, or not necessarily to figure it out, but really grasp it and understand it. There are so many things in this world that are outside of our control. It's how we react to them that makes the difference. I absolutely love the story that you talk about with Beth and what it did for you and how it became a turning point for you. Because while the things that we experienced as children were horrific, and they were, I mean, it gives me goosebumps. I've got them right now. Thinking about your story, thinking about my past. Those things are completely outside of our control. We could not control what those kids were doing to us.
No.
We could not control the things that they would say and the times when it would become physical and things like that. But I will tell you that for so many years after that, I was so angry, so resentful. I had such a bad temper. I would break stuff. I would hurt people. Mm-hmm. I was not the kind of person that I would want to be around today. And I blamed it on them.
Oh, yes. That's right. That's right.
But what I learned,
it's their fault. Yes.
Yeah. What I learned, it wasn't their fault. It was my fault. Because it was my fault because I gave those people the power to turn or do things in my life that they should never have the power to do.
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm so glad and I do share that with students when I go up to speak and also as an educator, because I went into the fashion industry. There were some situations there where I was glad I was bullied because I developed a thick skin. But skipping ahead to me becoming a vocational educator, because I did not know I was going to go into education, because I started my fashion career in Boston, and my trajectory was, I'm going to New York,
Oh, of course.
because that's the next step.
That's where it's at.
Exactly. As fate would have it, I became a fashion marketing instructor in the state of Washington. And I knew that nobody in my class was going to be bullied. Sure, I'm going to teach them the fashion, in information and a good work ethic and this and that. But I would write on the board, civility counts. And I made sure day one, when teachers have to go over all this stuff, but my own expectations, nobody's going to bully anybody in here. I don't care who you don't like. I don't care. I don't care. Because when you go out into the real world, you're going to meet people who don't like you. I think it's like 12% of the people you meet don't like you. Then there's still a huge percentage who do. Mm-hmm. But I will expect you to respect each other. You don't have to like me. You don't have to like anybody in the classroom, but you do need to give them respect. Whenever anybody is speaking, you're listening. You're not doing anything else but listening, whether it's to me and also to your classmates. And I will demonstrate the same thing to you. And there is no bullying allowed in here, because I was bullied. And I know what it looks like, and I know what it feels like, and it's not happening in here. And, students will test you. And somebody said something to someone, and that kids will say this, oh, I was just joking.
Oh, of course.
And I would look them dead in the eyes and say, you weren't joking. You meant to say what you said. You didn't mean for me to hear it, but you meant it. Then they start squirming around and stuff like, no. You meant it. It's not going to fly in here. This is an elective class, doors over there. It's not happening in here.
Nice.
And I believe that because I was bullied and because I worked with the public in the fashion industry, cutthroat industry, it is, that I'm not taking anything off any teenagers in my class. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, it's a strong stance, and that's what it takes. And I'm so glad we're having this conversation, Madonna, because, when you take that into a classroom, because, I think back to your story just a little bit ago, and the gym teacher that
yes.
chose to look the other way and pretend like you were lying, or pretend, because I remember the same kind of things that were going on back when I was in school. What did you do to make these kids do this? Or are you sure that that's how that happened? Or did you just misperceive what they were saying?
Yes.
But it takes, and the reason that stuff continues, Madonna, is because there are people who don't take that strong stance. There are educators who don't take that strong stance like you did.
Exactly.
So the whole thing that you're talking about, that strong stance, that is what needs, that feeling that kid had when you said, no, it's not that you didn't mean to say it or you were kidding. It's that you didn't mean for me to hear it. And I heard it. And I know that kid all of a sudden had that his stomach, or his or her stomach, turned into a knot. They just realized they've been put in their place. And
exactly.
it might make them think twice about,
exactly.
about doing it the next time.
Exactly. And it did because the whole class realized at that moment that she's serious, because like I said, kids test the teachers, the teachers say, well, this is how it's going to be. Just like they test their own parents. Oh, this is how it's going to be. But then when you test the teacher or the parents and they let you get away with it, they didn't mean what they said. They didn't mean. And then you've lost control and a little bit of respect from the class. And it's the same thing with kids and their parents. And I can say that because I taught for 32 years. So, so parents, I know what's going on. Yes. Right. I hear what your kids say about you.
Got a pretty good idea. You've built up a long career of those who would try to make you believe something that wouldn't be true, right, Madonna?
Oh, well, like I said, I've had a corporate management career in the fashion industry, and you have to be aware of people when they're not telling you the truth. So it's real easy with teenagers. Like, no, honey, that's not going to fly. That's
what's that old phrase? Don't pee down my back and tell me that it's raining.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
right. Yeah,
I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And
I tried to clean that up and make it sound a little bit nicer than it actually is. But yeah, that old phrase of, I've been around too long. I've done too many things.
Exactly.
Don't try to convince me that this isn't what it is, because I know what it is. And a lot of times it begins with the parents, right? It begins with parents who are not guiding. I go back to what I said before. I think about the kids. I think about the kids that bullied me and the kids that bullied you, second, third, fourth, fifth grade, all the way up into high school. Those kids, we're not born with hate. Madonna.
Oh, no. That is definitely taught.
Right. It is a taught behavior. Now, I don't think human nature is inherently good either. I mean, we have to teach kids to share. We have to teach kids to be nice to each other, but right. Hate based on skin color, hate based on economic well-being of parents or financial well-being of parents or things or picking on others because they're different than us. That stuff, some of it's kind of built in, but if the parents are not recognizing it and not doing something to stem the growth of that toxicity within their children, that's as much on the parents as anybody else. Having a strong educator like yourself to point it out, and I know I read some of the stuff that you talked about, some of your interactions with parents during parent-teacher conferences and PTA meetings, things like that, and saying, hey, we need to do something here, but it really starts in the home. I mean, it's not for teachers. It's not the responsibility of the teacher to figure this out. That's the responsibility of the parents.
It is.
To figure that out.
It is. And well, I'm going to say there's been a breakdown. There has absolutely been a breakdown in parents being, I want to say, not just responsible, but for teaching their kids right from wrong. I can remember a time, and once in a while it does still happen, but it's a once in a while thing, that if you're a child who destroyed somebody's property, whether you meant to or not,
oh my goodness,
and your parents found out about it, you got whooped. That was the first thing.
That's a fact.
And then you had to apologize. Your parents would go with you. You'd knock on the door of somebody's house and you're still wiping the tears away saying, I'm sorry I did this. what can I do to make up for it? Can I mow the lawn? Can I pull the weeds? Can I do this or that? You know, or the parents would let the other person know, oh, this kid's gonna, you know, he's gonna be punished for this somehow, this way, and this way, you know, and they would let people know that one, they were embarrassed that their child had done this. They would say, we didn't raise our child up to be this way, and we are embarrassed.
That's right. That is one thing that's missing so much today, Madonna. Parents don't, I mean, that was the biggest thing for me as a child, was we didn't have a lot. I will tell you that. We didn't have, I can think of so many phrases to put this. We did not have the same kind of things that most people had that I lived around and I interacted with. But what I did have is I had parents that put the fear in me that if I did wrong, I was going to pay for it. And that, yeah, pay for it, maybe with physical pain, but certainly I was going to have to figure out how, you know, I would have never dreamt of breaking somebody else's stuff, because if I did, I had to figure out a way to pay for it, you know,
exactly.
And or I did not want to disappoint my parents. I didn't want my parents to be mad at me. So those kind of things, those values that were instilled by my folks are worth more than every single thing that they could have given me as a child that they never could. You know, I will say that. I will say that from now. I've said it my whole life, and I'll say it until the day that I die. The other thing that they taught me, personal accountability. That's what you're talking about there, Madonna, is that personal accountability factor. Having to go up and ring that doorbell. Having to stand there and apologize for your behavior, for your actions. That's far too uncommon these days.
That's right.
It's far too uncommon. Because parents are more interested in being their kids. And this conversation could go on forever. Maybe we'll save this for another time. Parents are too interested in being their kids' friends than their disciplinarian.
You said it. And unfortunately, some teachers too. They want to be because I can remember saying to the students, like, I'm not here to be your friend. I don't care if you don't like me. I don't care. I am here to teach you this, and this. But I'm not your friend. And I've seen teachers who, you know, oh, well, Miss so-and-so and so-and-so lets us do this and that. Well, that's good for them. But I'm thinking in the back of my mind, like, you cannot, you cannot be their friend, because I'll tell you, when those kids turn on you, you know, because they will turn on their friends, you know, if you do something or say something that they don't like.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
in a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat. And if you're an adult that they can wrap around their little fingers, you're dead meat.
Yep. There's got to be that vertical power structure, because once you get them on that horizontal plane, you know, I'm gonna jump out on a limb here, Madonna, and say none of your students ever called you Madonna. It was always Miss Hanna.
Oh, you know, one of them once somebody lost their mind and said Madonna, and it was like, what? oh, well, let me just say this. There are kids that you have in your class, and there are kids that you know from the hallway, because, you know, you got to stand guard before class starts, and during passing time, you got to be out in the hall eyeballing people, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking for people who are bullying or swearing or whatever. You know, I'm giving them the evil eye. Come over here, you know, whatever. And I don't know, this young African American kid, I don't know, he lost his mind. Well, he said, hey, pretty girl, good morning. I looked at him and I said, excuse me, but I'm sure you meant to say, good morning, Mrs. Hanna. He just lost his little mind, Will. He just lost his little mind for a second. And I did tell his mama. I did.
Yeah.
And his mother was embarrassed. But this is what she said. Thank you for not writing him up and sending him to the office. Thank you for telling me. And I went, oh, okay. Because I could have.
Oh, sure.
I could have. I could have. But, like I said, he's a kid I knew from the hallway. And this one day he just lost his mind. Hey, pretty girl. You're like, oh, I know you lost your mind. But you meant to say, see, I just gave him a nice correction. You meant to say, good morning, Mrs. Hanna.
Right.
See?
Right.
That's how you do the correction, Yeah.
See, and a lot of it, yeah. No, I'm sure the way that you looked at him and the way that you said it, and again, I'll go back to that same thing I was talking about earlier, that knot you get in your stomach saying, oh no, I done messed up.
That's right.
Right? So no, so that you've brought results to the classroom so many times, Madonna. The work that you have done, the story, again, I go back to the same thing I said when we started our conversation. That whole thing about, resilience rather than resentment. The things that you could have done, the attitude that you could have had, the things that you could have hung on to and allowed you to be this miserable person. You didn't.
Exactly.
You didn't. You took that stuff, you took those lessons, and you moved it into a program to help others that have either dealt with what we dealt with, being bullied as a child, or to stem the tide of that bullying in the first place.
Yes.
Talk to me real quick, because I know we're getting close to the end of our time.
Yes, we're getting close. And thank you for bringing up the projects. Because I was an out of the box instructor, I did develop several anti-bullying projects. One was a fashion show called Flights of Fancy, and it featured students with disabilities as the models. My students would be their mentors, teaching them how to model and everything like that, and dress them and be there for them for a full-scale fashion show. And I also put together a project called Beautiful Differences, which was based on my children's book, Mommy, Why Are My Eyes So Big? And that fashion show. And the project was to let kids know that what you're bullied about is your beautiful difference. If you have freckles, that's your beautiful difference. That's what makes you unique. Do you have a mole on the side of your face? Yay! That's what makes you different and wonderful. Because of these projects, I can remember two incidents really quickly. One where one of my students was traveling on the city bus, and there was an adult who was making fun of an individual who had a disability. My student stood up to that adult, just stood up and said, "You're an adult and you should not be bullying this person." He just stood up on the bus and confronted this adult and said that.
Wow.
And when he shared that with the classroom, I was like, yay for you. But it was because of the projects that we were working on that gave this young man the confidence, because he could have just been a bystander like everybody else and said, that guy's being a jerk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But and not doing anything about it. But here you have this high school kid who's standing up and saying, you're an adult and that's wrong. Another instance was after one of our fashion shows, the special needs student asked my student to meet his parents. And the parents were so overwhelmed by seeing their child on stage in a fashion show, and to meet the person who had, trained them, been their mentor.
Sure.
Both the parents had tears in their eyes, and they hugged this 17-year-old male student. They hugged him and said, "Thank you so much for working with our son. People have made fun of him as long as he's been in school, but you made him look so wonderful on stage." And when that young man shared that with me and the rest of the class, because we were doing a debriefing, he said, "That's a moment I will never, ever forget, because I've never been thanked by adults before." And just think about how powerful that was to him. Here we are, working with a group of kids who are, made fun of and looked over. And he had this opportunity to be just from the heart thanked by this young man's parents. And he said, "I'm going to remember that the rest of my life."
Sure. That's awesome. That is so cool. That is so cool. No, it's amazing how different events throughout our lives can change the trajectory of who we are as people. And that youngster on the bus that day, standing up and saying that to that adult. And I'm sure that adult, I mean, I have to imagine they were probably speechless,
He was. He was.
And or the recognition that young man got for helping the special needs kid, because not only will that internal feeling of doing something so good for somebody that couldn't do for themselves, that there is a reward in and of itself for people that have the heart to do that. But then to be recognized for it, and then the feeling that the parents had, we talked so much on this podcast about gratitude and personal accountability, and and so many of the things that I talk about have come up in this conversation, Madonna. This has been so wonderful, because this is the type of thing that everybody needs to hear. These conversations like this are instrumental in making people understand that we as individuals can change the trajectory of other people's lives. And it's just a few simple lessons. It's not that complicated. It comes down to gratitude, personal accountability, treating people the way that you would like to be treated, but more importantly, treating people as they would like to be treated. There's so much. There's so much good in this world, Madonna. There is, and oftentimes the small portion of people that are out there to spread toxicity get all of the attention.
I have said that so many times to people. I've said there are more good, wonderful people in this world, but the people who get the press are, somebody who's saying something nasty, or even just watching the State of the Union address, and how much press that is still getting. The negative behavior that's being reinforced and almost celebrated. But there are just so many. There are more good, kind, wonderful people out there in the world.
That's right. Well, they need more people like you, Madonna. The world, that they're out there. People just have to look for them. People like Madonna Hanna are out there making the world a better place every single day. I am so incredibly grateful that we were able to have this conversation, Madonna. You're a true gem, a fast and fabulous fashionista that has people out there just inspired beyond belief. I am so grateful that I got to know you a little bit today, Madonna, and I'm surely looking forward to our next conversation, because I hope we can do this again.
Yes, well, thank you. Thank you. I feel like we're soulmates in this, because you have touched me. We were seeing eye to eye on things, and this has just been incredible. And I would look, anytime you would like to have me back as a guest, because I would like to continue our conversation. I would. This has been a pleasure, and I just hope people have been inspired and empowered and motivated by both of us today.
I hope so too. We'll definitely direct them to your website, Dropkick the Drama, and so much inspiration there. So much inspiration in this episode, and I look forward to doing it again. Thank you very much, Madonna.
You're very welcome, Wilk. Very welcome.
Friends, if there's anything in this episode that provided exceptional value to you, please make sure to hit that share button. Share it with your friends, share it far and wide. And of course, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe right from our website so you can get the D-Rate the Hate podcast sent to your email inbox every week. So this is Wilk wrapping up for the week, saying get out there, be kind to one another, be grateful for everything that you've got, and remember, it's up to you to make each and every day the day that you want it to be. If there is something that you would like to share with me, you can catch me on most social media platforms, or you can email me directly, wilk@wilksworld.com. With that, my friends, I am going to back on out of here, and we will catch you next week. Take care.